Welcome everyone to Spotlight on Community. My name is Lynn McIntyre and I'm very, very happy to host you today. I want to thank Moksha Canada Foundation for allowing this to happen. We wouldn't be here without the possibility of the Moksha Canada Foundation thinking about this wonderful programming on shining light on community, hence the name Spotlight on Community. I'd like to introduce you a little bit about the program and what we're about in terms of Moksha Canada Foundation. The purpose of the program is to raise awareness and find creative ways to address issues that affect our diverse communities across Canada. We're about connecting, creating, and participating, but in particular, we're about multiculturalism, respecting diversity, and celebrating each and every one of our communities. Our work is building, facilitating, promoting, and connecting diverse Canadian communities. I have some wonderful guests here today. We're going to be talking about financial literacy in part one. We will have part two to follow this week, so please join us for both segments if you can. We have some wonderful guest experts, and I will have you introduce yourselves, but I'll first say hello to Jyoti. Hello, Jyoti, and I wondered if you could just introduce yourself first, last name, and maybe your title of why you're here today.
Yeah, so my name is Jyoti Gupta, and I am a senior manager at one of the big 5 banks. I am an immigrant, 24 years in Canada, and I have been fortunate to be blessed with all the benefits this country comes with, but most importantly, I've also been fortunate to be able to build a strong foundation for myself and for my family, and be a part of this education and financial system. So had an opportunity to help a lot of our customers and colleagues and community members with all their financial needs. So I'm excited to share some insights with you today and also help you with any questions that you may have moving forward.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Honored. Thank you. And might I jump over to Priti? Priti,
sure.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Priti Mooljee, and I'm currently, just like Jyoti, working at actually one of the big 5 banks as well. I'm a senior branch manager at a big retail branch, I suppose, in Vaughan. So been with the bank for about 25 years, gained a lot of experience. And I've lived here all my life. However, I was born in India and I moved here when I was 1 year old. So practically been, raised here. But I do understand some of the challenges just having, my family, a big part of my family come from, as newer immigrants. And I do like to sort of, shed my expertise and that type of thing, where I can. So thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. No, thank you very much for the background info as well from both Jyoti and yourself. That really helps our listeners and viewers. Thank you so much. Raja.
Hi, I'm a mobile mortgage specialist with one of the top 5 banks for 15 years. And that's the only thing that I've been doing. Love what I do for a living, and I'm here to give back from my knowledge and share back with the community so they can plan better getting into lending market.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. So our viewers are really all across the spectrum from beginning of life to the end of life. So we'll really be focusing on financial independence and literacy and that conversation surrounding that. And I wondered if we can maybe just start out with, let's just talk about if someone's having a baby. I know we were talking about that before the program started, and if someone was even just looking at the financial planning in terms of allowing their children to be literate in their finances, how would one go about doing that if they're even planning for their birth?
Yeah, so you know what, I would say that there's never too early to start planning for a future for your or financial future for your family. Right from the time when you get married. And I think we'll probably talk about a full circle here from when a child is born. But as parents, when you know you're expecting or you plan a family, the most important thing is start a savings plan. I think the most, we all realize that our lifestyle, based on our expenses, adding another member of the family comes with a big expense as well. Although it's a bundle of joy, there's so much more that you can plan around your child's education and the never-ending needs, right? So having a savings plan is definitely the first starting point in establishing a financial future for your family to be. That could start off with just a simple savings account which you can actually set up at any of your local banks that you do your banking with. And then also having a discipline around how do you contribute into that savings plan. So I know a lot of financial institutions offer a service where you can, from every paycheck, you can transfer, or every time you get your direct deposit, you can transfer whatever you want to save aside, like as little as maybe $10, $25 or more into a savings account. So setting up a discipline, I think, is very important right off the get-go, and then trying to stick to it and finding the best ways to invest this money as well. I think that's a good starting point in you know, from you to take that step once you start thinking about having a family. Again, there's other things that you want to do when you do have your child. I'm going to pass it over to Priti, who can share, obviously, once you do have a child, there's all the fun stuff that you can then start building for your child's future.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Priti, jumping in there to the conversation.
Sorry, I think I was on mute for a second. Yes, happy to answer that one. So as a child, there are different accounts that are available to you. So we have one in particular that most you know, people would want to kind of open, and most banks, I'm assuming, would have this. And it's basically a youth account that youths could have, like from any time from when they're born up until they're 18 years of age. And then at that point in time, they would convert it to any other type of account, whether it be a checking or anything like that. The good thing about this type of account is there's no fees associated to it. So most banks do have this type of an account for that purpose. And so that child doesn't have any fees and things like that that they would have to pay. The other part of it is something called an RESP, which is a registered education savings plan that is available through the banks, as well as the government also providing a grant. So basically it's up to a maximum grant of $7,200 for a lifetime. And the way it works is, for example, if someone wants to sort of open this account. So typically it would be parents that opens this type of account for their child. What's required is just a social insurance number for the child. They would go into a bank, they would open this up, and basically for every $2,500 that they would contribute for that particular year, they would get a government grant of $500. So that's a good 20% that they can get. Just like that. And in addition to that, if these people are in a lower income bracket and things like that, there's also different bonds like that are available through the government to qualify for additional grants. So this is something that should be a must for all you know, individuals or parents to be opening this up for their children, because really it's like getting free 20% from the government. So, and there's different vehicles you can invest in as well. So you can do mutual funds, you can do GICs, you know, you can purchase stocks if you want to. So it really just depends on how savvy the person is in terms of investing. And of course, the banks are there to help with that as well.
Well, it's a game changer.
Yes.
Yeah, is that correct? Yeah, no, for sure. I couldn't imagine not accessing that. It just sounded so user-friendly.
Yes.
No, that's really cool. Is there anything you wanted to jump in there on, Raj? Raja?
I think I'm going to jump in when these kids grow up a little bit. So
right. Okay. So yeah, feel free to jump in at any time. We'll just kind of bounce around in conversation. Thank you. No, that's really, really cool. So we have Jyoti unmuted right now. Jyoti, you were saying something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think the premise behind the planning for future is really twofold, right? I think we need to learn the art of saving money. So we oftentimes feel that putting aside money is saving. That's definitely one. But I think number two is also the best way to actually lower your fees or find ways to pay less. So it's money saved is money made is just a general principle. So I know a lot of us are very complacent with our bank accounts or the way we do our banking. We want to have the freedom of using our debit card anywhere we are. Or, you know, as many times in a month. But I think what's important here to understand is there are a lot of fees. And the truth is that is true for all financial institutions, irrespective whether it's a community account or a community bank or a big commercial bank. irrespective of where you are banking, there are fees associated with your accounts. But there are also ways that you can lower those fees or eliminate those fees by maintaining certain balances. So I think the important part we all need to know, and our community members need to know, is just finding ways to, first of all, save money. So saving on fees, setting up a discipline, putting money aside for your children, putting aside for your next big purchase. And I know Raja's going to talk a lot of fun stuff around, you know, our home purchase. So there's so many needs that we have as humans. So really just, again, money saved is money made. And then the second thing I wanted to just add to what Priti was saying is our ESP is a great tool to invest or to save for your child. But then as the owner of that RESP account, you do have a choice on how that money is invested. So speaking to your financial institution or the company that invests your RESP is very important, because the goal here is not just to get the government grant. The goal here is also to make that money grow, where you do have that discretion to do that. So by all means, I think the beginning here is to connect with an advisor at your local financial institution, wherever you bank, wherever it's convenient, and just understand what's important. Or first of all, just explain what's important to you, and then just find ways to save and move forward.
Yeah, so partnering with someone. So financial literacy then, I guess, at the very early age is most important then. And I think moving forward in our societies, we're realizing that the importance of teaching that in school at a very young age. Yeah, and just sort of being user-friendly and savvy and kind of figure out ways. But mentoring with someone is really important then, Jyoti, because that can be very intimidating. You know, sometimes our children will know more than we do. In terms of financial literacy sometimes as well. We're starting to notice that, right? As we, you know, also being in the teacher background, I've noticed that as well. So then for yourself, in terms of teaching that, how do you go about teaching that, the understanding of what literacy is and why important it is? And you said a game, like you were talking about a game plan, but that scares people sometimes. So how could we simplify it for people who have never, they don't have a clue about it, or they're just completely flabbergasted by taking that on?
Yeah, I know it can be really intimidating, right? And I know it feels odd when you, like, it's nerve-wracking for some of us to go into a bank or, you know, go and sit in front of a professional and try to explain what you want to. But I think the most important thing to understand is that, you know, when we're not feeling well, we do go to a doctor. When we need to do our taxes, we go to an accountant. When it comes to planning for your financial future, you do need the help of a specialist. That could be a financial advisor. And the only thing I can say, and Priti, please, you know, feel free to chime in. I think the employees or the colleagues working at your local financial institution, they are trained. They're there. They're as much as, you know, thinking about their financial future as much as you. So just feel free with comfort. I think it also comes from yourself, like taking that first step, realizing that you need to do this. Is more important. And then once you do this, then plan it further. What's the next step? What do I need to do? Now, again, you know, this generation is really smart, to be honest with you. Like, a lot of people are very self-sufficient. There's tons of resources available online. I think this new generation, you know, very self-sufficient, don't need anybody face-to-face. Online it is. But wait, you know what, whether it is online or in person, the goal here is to plan. Right? Whatever works for you, writing it down, putting a goal. I think there's enough, you know, we all go through those enough motivational talks, you know, but if you ever reflect back and see all the successful people, I think the way they got there was not that they had all the money in the world, but I think it's through deliberate planning and being like really persistent and moving forward, right? Learning from every experience. So I know we can go to a completely different topic here from financial literacy too. But Priti, I know you see customers coming in all the time in your.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. So agree with you 100%. I think the planning is a huge aspect of it and part of it. And like you said, you know, a lot of it is just, you know, taking that one step to book an appointment with an advisor, right? So, you know, you may have one need. So your need could be to open up a savings account today. But financial advisors, believe it or not, are trained to pick up on these kind of cues to say that, you know what, this is something that may benefit you. This may not benefit you, sort of thing, right? So you may just go with the intention of opening just a simple bank account. However, it's also them that will advise you as to what other aspects can in banking can benefit you. So it could be, maybe you need a credit card for just doing like simple purchases and things like that, and building your credit. And I know I'm going to go into Raja's space soon, but really it's just about building credit and things like that, and managing it so that, your credit is good when you do get to the point where you want to apply for a mortgage or like a loan or anything like that. So it's all, baby steps, and it's really important to, kind of take that first step, like Jyoti was saying, so that you can, build that and get to the next stage and be a little bit more financially secure. So I guess that leads us up to maybe the teenage phase, I suppose, where priorities could be getting a car loan because you want to buy a car, or getting your first credit card so you can make some purchases. So those are all things that, your financial institution and your bank advisor will be able to help you with and guide you through.
Thank you very much. So if you were taking out a car loan as a youth, could you still have a savings account as a youth account? Is that possible?
So great question. So youth account, you would have it until you're 18 years old. And to get a car loan, really, like, you would have to have some type of income, or you would need a cosigner or something like that, like a parent or, a relative to cosign, because there is the whole income aspect of it, where you would have to qualify for that loan. Because again, there are going to be monthly interest, principal and interest payments that are going to be made to that loan. Right. So typically it would be probably once they have a part-time job, or if they can get somebody to co-sign. They may or may not have that youth account. They may upgrade it to, like, let's say, a student account, which is, again, still free, where they would not be paying those exuberant fees or anything like that. So that is definitely something that is available as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I don't know
if I may interject here, I have a good point. So I will share a small story about a customer who is about, let's say, in mid-30s, and she's accumulated, pretty good wealth, and she has one property. And I asked her this question. I said, you haven't done anything crazy. You didn't win 649. How did you do this? And she told me her father taught her on her 11th birthday that, instead of giving you a, envelope for $100 or $50 for your birthday or buying a gift, you have a choice of sharing this and investing it with me. So he started telling her at a very young age what a checking account is, what's a saving account. You should save a percentage on a monthly basis. So this girl, since 11 now, for last 20 odd years, she's investing an X amount consistently in her investments, which is stocks, mutual funds, and all that. Built a really good nest egg that she will be retiring before 40, and no spouse in picture, and she's done it on her own. So power to that. So I think as a kid, and I'm trying to do that with my own kids. Right. I have 11 and 9, and while we go for our walks, we talk about, hey, do you know what checking account is? What's a saving account? What percentage you should donate on a monthly basis? What should you save on a monthly basis? And whatever you save, what's a TFS say? So those kind of fun conversation, you have it at a younger age. By the time they get to a teenager part, it might be easier for you to get them to start implementing that knowledge. That'd be my 2 cents.
That is more than worthy of 2 cents. Thank you so much. That is awesome. Great story as well. And then your personal touch with your family. That's really super cool. Then would you mind if I ask then about having whoever wants to take this, if you are a university student and you're moving from a youth account to a student account, what would be the difference then? You mentioned they're similar, but how can that be transferable?
So youth accounts are basically just savings accounts. With student accounts, you get a little bit more, the ability to write checks if you needed to. You would get, it's a checking account. So it's a little bit more, I guess, the transactions wise, it would be the same, but that's the main difference. So the youth account is the savings, and then a student account would be more of a checking account. In order to qualify for that, you would have to be enrolled in like college or university. And basically, typically what the banks would ask for is some kind of student identification, so that they can see that this person is in fact a student. So, but in addition to that, if let's say, for example, it was an individual that decided not to go to school right away or whatever the case may be, there are still, accounts that are available that are lower in fees. It just means that they may have less transactions that you can do and that type of thing, but there are lower cost accounts as well available.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that. Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for doing that. No, I thought they're very specific to that. Appreciate that. Any questions from Sunil at this point? No, keep going. Yeah. All right, I'm just going to go through a couple of questions that I've sort of have lined up. So we're explaining what financial literacy is, and pardon me, and how important that is to teach it to our youth. Do you think it should be part of the curriculum then?
I can chime in there. So I absolutely think that it should be part of the curriculum. And one of the things that I did volunteer for is something called Junior Achievement. And that is something, basically, it's like some of us bankers would go into a classroom, and it's specific to grade 7 and grade 8. And there's 2 different courses. One is called Dollars and Cents, and the other one is just about managing your money. And these courses are actually full-day courses, and the teacher gets a break because we go in and we teach these kids, and there's different activities that we do to kind of get them to learn. But just to give you a little bit high-level context of what's covered is it's about budgeting. So, what kind of thing, how can you save? If you save, what can you sort of get to or expect in terms of, your retirement and that kind of thing. They also talk about jobs. So, when your paycheck comes in, if you're, let's say, for example, a plumber, this is your salary. What kind of, paycheck can you expect from that? If you're a lawyer, what kind of paycheck can you expect from that? So these are just kind of, these courses that are available that we volunteer to do. However, I think it should definitely be part of the curriculum. And for some reason, I thought it was something that was being introduced. So I'm not sure if anybody's heard anything more about that, but.
Yeah, you know what, actually, Priti, I was talking to my kids. So when my kids are 13 and 15, and I know my son just took accounting in grade 11, and he's asking questions about some basic banking and stuff like that actually now sounds like news to him. Again, he understands the part about savings and having a bank account, but just to understand really how can that money grow and all the other premise around it. Like, this is the first time that he's actually learning through his school when he's taking his accounting courses. So it's quite interesting. I don't think, again, we could stand corrected if things have already been introduced, but I feel like even, it has to start earlier, because I know at a very early age, our kids are definitely becoming independent to have a debit card and be able to tap it wherever they go, whether it's a bubble tea or at a mall or whatever it is. They all want that independence, but what they do not, I guess what they don't understand is what is really replenishing that money in that tap of the bank account, and what is that discipline they can have around, right? So I think from financial literacy perspective, it should start at a really early age in schools, whether it's through simple examples of some games that they can play in school. I would even say I know my own sister, her little daughters, they have a little kitchenette, those toy kitchens, and they actually start playing with the little the little toys that to the grocery cart and stuff like that. So they're already having those conversations around, okay, you can't buy this, you don't have enough money, where are you going to get money from? So those little things, I think there's so much more that can be done when it comes to financial literacy, right? From online games to those toys that you can buy in stores, and also in classes. So I think we have a big gap here. at first, and I could stand corrected.
Oh,
it's
sure.
Monopoly 101.
There you go.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, building upon the lemonade sale. Yeah. No, very true. And I think taking it from the high school level, in which they've done very, very well at the curriculum and doing in terms of the business plan and people sort of getting a sense of things before they move on to university or not, or, you know, other things outside of high school. The elementary level is, you know, sort of, I guess what you were referring to, everyone here today, just fine tuning that a bit more and starting at kindergarten age, even, you know, even preschool for that matter, getting a sense of things and accountable for your plan, right? You know, and don't overtax yourself for things that you don't have, right? No, that's cool. All right, so then we're kind of, what's the earliest one can open a bank account then? So if someone was, let's say they have a lemonade sale and they want to put their money in from that, is 8 years old too young? Do they have to wait till they're like 14?
No, absolutely not. So eight years old can definitely open accounts. We've had accounts opened as young, like for my kids, I opened their accounts when they were 6 months old. So it's like, you know, because, you know, they turn 1, they get birthday money, you know, we save that money for them. So absolutely, like you could open the account at any age. So even right as soon as they are born, you could open that account.
So then getting back to your conversation about investments then, so if you had this account open and you were young as an 8-year-old, let's say, for example, and you had this money and you wanted to then invest it, would you be able to do that as an 8-year-old?
Yes, absolutely. So typically up until age 12, the parents are associated to the account to a degree. So they would have to sign for it because obviously an 8-year-old or a 1-year-old is not going to be able to sign on an account. However, yes, the parents would, you know, that's part of the things that an advisor would advise to say that, you know what, you could potentially buy a GIC if, you know, how do you need the funds for anything? So if it's a longer term time horizon, then you could potentially invest in a GIC or something like that where they can make a little bit more interest. But yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And one other question around that, actually, I just wondered if the child has a career, for example, and the parents are managing their accounts how is that transferable as they move through the process, becoming more independent? How does that work?
Yeah, so great question. So typically up until 12, the parents are normally attached to the account. Yes. And then after that, so after that age, they can choose to sort of sign on their own and manage it. And we would give them a debit card and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So that way they can do deposits. So let's say, for example, they have a paper route and they're getting some cash. They can absolutely come into the bank with their debit card and be able to deposit that cash into their account, or if they get birthday money or whatever the case may be. So from that age onwards, they are able to, you know, sort of operate it on their own. And then, you know, and then just basically kind of move through the time period up until they turn 18. And then they get notification saying that they would have to convert it to a different type of bank account. So.
Any input at this point? Questions? Anyone else at this moment? No, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Let's see. Yes. So then if you don't mind, the different types of loans that are youth friendly, if someone is sort of getting a little bit older and they're thinking about some loans, they're not quite going to school yet, but they do want to take out a loan. You know, could you walk us through that a little bit? Are there some different options for youth?
So for youth, typically in terms of loans, they wouldn't really qualify for anything because they wouldn't have an income per se. So it wouldn't be until they're working part-time, that kind of thing. And then it would be after they're at least 19 years of age, because they would have to wait till they're 18 to get a credit card. And then from there, establish a little bit of credit, and then move on to either getting a loan or a unsecured line of credit, let's say. But they would have to have an income for that. The other thing that they could qualify for is a student loan. So, you know, there are very specific student lines of credits that are available for professionals. So let's say, for example, you know, there's a student that's looking into going into the medical field and they are looking to go to, you know, become a doctor and attending medical school. There's very specific programs that most of the big 5 banks have for professional student lines. So, For example, I can just give you, if somebody wants to become a doctor, they would actually qualify for up to $300,000, and they wouldn't have to repay that loan until they're like they're done their residency, for example. So those are some types of loans that are available to students. For professional programs, sometimes they would not, specifically to medicine, they would not need a cosigner even. So if they were going to a university or college that's on the approved list for that bank, they would potentially qualify without a cosigner. Or if it's like outside of the country, they may need a cosigner. So it could be a parent or a relative. But those are some examples. There's also other student lines of credits that, to pursue post-secondary education. But typically those would need cosigners because the banks would need some type of guarantee that this loan is going to be repaid.
Would you recommend then, so if someone is 19 and they wanted to get a loan and they're partnering with somebody who's going to co-sign for them, would you recommend they start small and something that's attainable to build their credit rating?
Yes, absolutely. So I would always recommend that they start off with a credit card just to build their credit. And then for a student loan, typically it's anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000, I would say, to start off with. And then they can kind of go from there and just sort of manage it. The important thing to know is that just to, ensure, like whether it's a credit card or a student line of credit or a loan, that they're ensuring that they're making and they're planning for making that payment every single month, right? That's the important thing, because if they don't, that's where it's going to affect their credit, and it could impact any other future, credit that they apply for, because it could affect their credit score, or it will affect their credit score and their rating could go down. So that's always a very important factor to consider.
I think, if I may interject here, I think for credit-wise, I think instead of looking at tools per se as much, what's lacking in our younger generation is the knowledge and the understanding of what credit is, what debt is, how to do these things. So I think for credit-wise, when I do my presentations, I normally talk about, there are three things that affect your credit: the amount of debt that you borrow, how frequently you apply for debts, or applying for credit, and, your repayability, do you pay your bills on time? That's pretty much what we're looking at when we're looking at a credit score. And your credit score goes up and down based on these things. If you're shopping around for, from bank to bank for credit card, and you approach me, I'm the number 6, and I see that you've been to other 5, I know either you're not getting approved or you're taking too much credit on yourself. Mm-hmm. So I think the basic conversation that needs to happen with the kids is that, from a young age, that, if you are getting $20 pocket money, how much of that pocket money will you save? And how much of that pocket money you give it to me for $10 a month, and maybe I can give you $11 a month. So, just teaching them in those activities per se, so they understand the concept. So when they go into the real world, it's a simple cut and paste and using the right tools to get there.
No, thank you for both of you, because that's why we're here, Sparklet and Community. It's really just to impart knowledge from our experts such as yourselves. Thank you both. Then could I, sorry, do you mind if I keep going? Just keep, yeah, thank you. I'm just going to fire away. So then could I ask then about the best type of credit, if you're using your debit card, I think we spoke about this before, Jyoti, in another capacity. Is it important for a young person, for example, who's building their credit to use their credit card to purchase things?
It's a good point. They should use their credit card. Using the credit card is not, there's anything wrong with it. It's repaying your credit card that affects you. So the habit becomes is that, you get your bill, you be responsible, you're going to be an adult soon, you need to pay your bill on time. Yeah. I think that is the habit that we want to build up. And at the same time, it's very easy to, go somewhere and use your credit card and rack it up for $500, but then that $500 is going to have a payment. And then how long will it take you to pay that $500 off? Mm-hmm. So that is the kind of conversation we need to have. I would say this is pre-uni, maybe grade 10, grade 11 stage. So they can prepare themselves better as they go into their dorm or their first independent life that they're going to have. If you have an X amount coming from OSAP, what goes towards your education, what goes towards your food, you need to plan your daily budget. So all those things, there are a lot of activities, a lot of the main banks offer that they can use as a tool to download. But majority of the time, I think the conversation needs to happen around there. You have an X amount of coming in. What can you borrow and pay on a monthly basis, and what can you pay right away and get it off your your expenses.
Thank you.
You're just right. I think what you're trying to say is that a credit card should be treated as a tool for convenience versus something that as a loan, because the interest rate on most credit cards is so high that if you start carrying the balance, it is very difficult to get out of that cycle of repayment and being able to clear it off. So I think as long as we all can understand that credit card it's a great tool to use anytime, anywhere to kind of bridge the time in between you actually have your pay come in or your ability to pay or pay for whatever you're purchasing until the time your actual money comes in. So that gap is all that credit card is going to help you bridge. So if we were to take a look at it to say, I can only use this credit card up to X amount of dollars because that's all I'm going to get into my account, or that's all I'm going to have saved up after all my other expenses, then we'll be okay. But if we treat that as a loan that we can use now and then just continue to make minimum payments, we're going to fall behind really early. So I think that's the part that Raja, you were mentioning, that if I hear this correctly, like that's what we're really trying to teach our youth at this time, and it has to be really early. That debit card takes money from your account, so you can only spend what you have, and credit card doesn't take money right from your account. It gives you a limit, but that doesn't mean that that limit does not need to be repaid. So we kind of have to blend that mentality of debit and credit card to say, credit card is really like your debit card, treated like that, just to get that additional perks like travel benefits or points and stuff like that can help you with some fun things that you want to plan for yourself, right?
I see. Yeah, no, for sure. Thank you. In terms of university, you've taken these loans out, and when you're graduating from university, what happens then with the university student in terms of repaying the loans, and as things shift from being a student to becoming a professional and having to repay?
I know this one is a tough one because a lot of our students, when they are done with their education, they've got a big OSAP bill that they need to now continue to pay for. All of a sudden, the payments for OSAPs are due because before you would only pay interest only. Now you have to start paying the principal. And again, the only thing I can say here is a discipline. I know I've repeated that a lot of times, but I think that is what it comes down to, right? We have to make sure that paying down these debts becomes a part of our budgeting, our daily expense calculation. So the faster we can teach our kids to have that discipline of what I have and how much I'm spending, and it's all really correlated. There isn't any magic money really coming in from anywhere. It's all what you've got is what you can spend, the better it is. And that same thing is going to happen when you finish your university and you go out in the big wild world and get your first job or start making money. The payment to that OSAP is going to have to become a part of your repayment or your monthly expenses that you're going to budget against the income that you've got coming in. So that's really, really important. I think, sorry, let's kind of backtrack and bring up really one thing. Just wanted to add what Raja was talking about the youth and their capacity to borrow. I think what I want to share with everybody is like really borrowing, when banks are lending money to you, whether it's a house, whether it's except for the first credit card, everybody wants to give you your first credit card when you're 18. But beyond that, anytime that you want to borrow for a car, your house, your anything else, there's 3 C's that they're looking for. The first one is character. The character is really what is read through your credit bureau. How have you been handling your existing debt? Have you been paying on time? Have you been overextending yourself? Have you been going out there applying for more and more credit cards? So that's what your credit score, your credit bureau will talk about. So that's one C that the lenders are looking for. The second one is capacity, so your income. So exactly what Priti was talking about. When you're a youth or you're a student or you're a new graduate, you don't have a strong income to start off with. Unless you are a professional, like a medical student, you are practically guaranteed, a profession after that. So the lending criteria for professionals is different, but in most cases, capacity and income is a very important player. And then the third one is capital, like how much have you saved for yourself? So the banks will always look at, does this person have a good savings plan? Like, Sometimes, yes, you do want to borrow to get a car because there's a 1% interest special offer for the lease or the finance rate, right? But really, do you have that capital or the ability to repay? So the three C's are really important. And as our youth get out of university, or as our youth go into university, they do not have those three strong C's to be able to, service their own loan. That's probably why, just going back to what Priti was saying, they need a co-signer to actually support to get their student line of credit or a loan for their first car and all the fun stuff. And then you want to be strong and get their own mortgage.
Yeah. And just to add to what Jyoti's saying, absolutely, I think those three C's are so important for everyone to know. But in terms of, even after that student graduates from college or university, typically the banks will give you a 6-month grace period where you don't have to make the principal and interest payments. But then after that 6 months, basically there will be a 1% payment that needs to be made on a monthly basis. So I think that's really important to know and plan for. So even if that student doesn't end up getting a job, the parents would have to probably step in, at some point just to kind of help out until that individual does get a job or a steady stream of income, right? Because that is still going to be due after 6 months.
If someone does make sort of a mistake in terms of their finances when they're coming out of school and they don't repay what they're supposed to repay, is there a way to kind of climb out of that hole? Does it take sort of their whole, a good 10-year period to do that, to recover from that? Or is it more doable in a 5-year chunk? Because it can be very daunting for someone once they've made that mistake and maybe haven't handled their finances.
Yeah. I can take that one away. So that's a really great point because, oftentimes, like I was saying before, if the student doesn't get a job right away, it would be tough, but at the same time, hopefully they do have that support of the cosigner to sort of help them to at least make the minimum payments. But yeah, if they are not able to sort of make those monthly payments, it would affect and impact their credit score. That would result in like any future credit being granted and that type of thing. So it is really important that they're able to at least make that minimum payment.
No, thank you for that. I wonder if then this is an opportunity to just jump into sort of the middle age aspect of things and maybe talking about RSPs for a moment. And if anyone wanted to jump on that and maybe educate our public about what an RSP is. Yeah.
Priti?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. So RSPs, so RSPs are registered, sorry, I was going to say education savings plan. They're registered retirement savings plans. And they're typically, the purpose of the RRSP is really for retirement. However, most people, want to sort of start investing or in contributing to an RSP once they get a job and start earning an income. The reason for that is the other benefit, I would say, to the RRSP is also income tax deduction. So let's say, for example, I'm making $50,000 a year, but I contribute $5,000 to my RSP that year. It's actually going to deduct that $5,000 from the income that I've earned. So I'm only going to be taxed on paying tax on that $45,000 because I'm going to get that income tax rebate. So that's the other great thing about an RSP. And the other thing that you can do, there's several different reasons why people would want to invest in an RSP and be able to use that money before retirement as well. So let's say, for example, somebody is sort of in their mid to late 20s or 30s and they're looking to purchase a home. If they have money in their RSP, they can actually borrow up to $25,000 from their RSP for the purpose of that, to purchase their first home. The benefit to this is that they can borrow from themselves without paying any withholding tax on it, and they would have 15 years to repay it. the other thing, and I'll let Raja talk more about that, but the other thing that they can also do is go back to school. So let's say, for example, they decide that they want to pursue another, like get their MBA or whatever the case may be, they can actually borrow money from their RSP as well, tax-free. So those are some of the benefits. And then we can get into sort of the difference between why somebody would want to contribute to an RSP versus a tax-free savings account, because that is also another, great, product and, that's available for people. And the difference really is in a TFSA is that you don't really need to sort of have a job or anything like that. It's not going to give you that income tax deduction per se. However, it will allow you to save money tax-free. So that's really the difference. It doesn't give you the tax deduction. However, it is a channel for saving money tax-free. So let's say, for example, somebody invests in the stock market, their money doubles. Normally, if it was non-registered, meaning if it wasn't an RSP or a tax-free savings account, they would be subject to huge tax implications, right? So in a tax-free, if they're investing, then the earnings that they've earned and the interest that they've earned or the capital gains that they've earned, that would not be taxed. So that's the benefits to, and the differences in both of those products. Anybody else want to chime in?
So I think this is a great segue. Priti, you've touched on all the points. I think this is a perfect segue from a teenager years to now you're going to have the responsibility of being an adult. And as you're building asset, you have multiple ways to do that. You can save it in a saving account, which we taught you when you were a kid. And when you touch the teenager years, we taught you about RSP and TFSA, which you're going to start doing now because you have a job and you have income. And I think this is the part where he comes in, you can register, do it in RSPs. So you save income tax for future and save money for retirement. Unless or until you need it to buy a property, you can use it for that. Or TFSA, if you're really savvy and you can make money in investments and you don't want to pay the government the income tax, so perfect tool to do that. And if none of those two tools are there, you want to keep on building in real estate investments, as a lot of people do, that's another way to do that. I think this is a good segue into letting them know, saying small things done consistently will produce bigger results than trying to do one big bang, overnight riches. So great point to say, build your assets that way, pay your bills on time, maintain your credit, don't look for too much credit. So when you're ready to borrow money in the market, people would like to give you money for your house, for your car, for your boat. That may be.
Your neighbors are virtue. Yes, for sure. That's awesome. No, it's beautiful. Jyoti, did you want to add to that?
No, I think Priti explained it really well. It's about, savings again. One is how, you could save on taxes on the entire amount that you're putting in your RSPs. And the TFSA is you only save taxes on the income that you earn. So really, you just, again, continuously have to think through what is important to me at this stage of my life, continue to evaluate your financial future every step of the way, because you can't just plan when you were expecting a child and then that's going to be your future moving forward. Things change all the time, the financial needs, the different trends and, things that you desire and want to build for yourself and your family too as well. So I think it's really important to have that habit of continuing to reevaluate the financial situation moving forward, and then also reset your plan accordingly.
Pardon?
Reset your financial plan accordingly.
No, for sure. Thank you so much. Would you mind if I ask yourself, just for you personally, for all of our participants here today, our guests, when did you start to really notice that as a young person, that shift into, okay, I really better pay attention here to what I'm doing and, really make calculated choices? Maybe I'll go back to you, Jyoti, and then we'll go around the panel.
I would say that for me, it started off really early, again, in my childhood, right from the grandparents when you get gifts. Like, I know I'm from India, so we used to have a little piggy bank that we'd always put money in. And every time we'd go to grandparents' house and they'd ask, okay, where's your piggy bank? So we'd always put it there. And then just like, it got to the point where obviously we didn't have the mindset of let's open a bank account, because that wasn't something that was very known at that time. But we would actually then get another piggy bank to kind of fill. So we have coins and piggy banks. And I think it was kind of cute to learn from there. But I think for me, coming to Canada and then just trying to build yourself up and working with my husband to plan for our first home and then the next, and everything else. I think that that was really when my actual financial planning, or that I gotta, like, we all have to take control of it, came on. Was when I really got married and was independent. But now that I reflect back, if I continued that growing up, and if our kids continue growing, thinking through and building earlier on, I think just like Raja was sharing that story of that girl, $100 every month in an investment, it can surely go a long way. And we've seen that. I think we just need to kind of preach that to our kids as well.
Thank you so much. And I love that it goes back to family. It's interesting. So the beginning of that, right? That's interesting. Raja, do you mind if I go to you and then I'll go over to Priti? Yeah. What about yourself? When did you start paying attention?
I think I was 6 months old when it all. I think at a pretty young age, I've been blessed with great family, again, family values that, I saw all around me, people talking about investments and savings and, headaches and credit issues and all that. So it taught me at a really early age, I would say about 16, 17, that I can remember where, I was practically living on my own, paying my own bills and managing my debts. So 16, 17 would be an age. And that's why I say that's a very crucial age, right before high school, to make sure that we have the right tools for the kids when they go in the real world. Priti?
So unlike Jyoti and Raja, I was a terrible, terrible saver. Any money I had, I wanted to spend it on anything and everything that I possibly could. When I first got a credit card, I remember thinking it was free money and just going out and spending it. And it, sadly enough, I learned the hard way, where my father was like, no, you cannot spend like this. And, but really, I have to say that I was probably one of the later bloomers where I really understood the value and got to understand the value of money when I actually started working at the bank. So I was quite young. I was still, just finishing school when I started as a teller at the bank. And that's when I really kind of understood the value of it and the importance of saving and the different vehicles that are available to me, as to how I can save. Like, you really, really do learn a lot. And that's why I think it's just so crucial and so important to have that financial literacy component introduced in, our school curriculums, because I'm probably not one of the only one that probably kind of thinks that way. And I see it every day, day in, day out with customers as well, where it's like, they kind of spend more than what they have. And that's where, all kinds of problems happen. So, that's what I would say to that, is that it's just really crucial to really kind of learn, and for parents and our school curriculums to have that component of it.
No, thank you. A shout out to the school curriculum. I know one of the guests that we had for another program, it was two young entrepreneurs that when the pandemic hit, they opened up a business, and it was from the skills they had learned in their business class in the grade 11 and grade 12 classes. And it really helped them to focus in on their business plan. And one of the founders is being nominated for Women of Distinction Award. Wow. She's a 17-year-old who's just a mover and shaker, but it was all thanks to her training in high school. Wow. In grade 11 and 12, as you were referring to, all of you. Okay, we're going to wrap up this portion of financial literacy. We got the thumbs up on that. And we want to thank our viewers for attending. And please reach out to Moksha Canada Foundation. Please get involved. There's so much going on. There's lots of festivals happening, guest experts that we get to speak with, lots of ideas, and we're learning and growing together with our communities across Canada and Ontario. Thank you for the opportunity. It is just wonderful to learn from you today. And I look forward to joining you in the next segment for Spotlight on Community for Moksha Canada Foundation. See you in the next segment.